I sat at my childhood dining table on Thanksgiving, watching my family devour the feast I had just paid for. 12 people, an elaborate spread, nearly $2,000. My mother stood up, holding a wrapped box with a ribbon. Everyone turned to watch. She announced she had a special gift for me. I opened it slowly. Inside was a laminated list titled, "If you want to eat with us again. Trevor's required behaviors." The room went silent. My younger brother snickered. My mother smiled proudly, explaining she had made copies for everyone so they could hold me accountable. I read the humiliating rules while my family waited. The turkey I had ordered from the specialty butcher sat half-carved on the table. The wine I had driven 3 hours to pick up from my parents' favorite vineyard sat open and nearly empty. The desserts from the bakery downtown, the one my mother always praised but could never afford, sat waiting on the sideboard. I had wanted this Thanksgiving to be perfect. I had wanted to show my family that I had made it, that I appreciated them, that despite everything, I still loved them. My girlfriend Amanda sat beside me, her hand frozen halfway to her water glass. I could feel her eyes on me, waiting to see how I would react. Across the table, my younger brother Jason lounged in his chair with that familiar smirk, the one he had worn since we were kids whenever I got in trouble and he did not. My father studied his plate like it held the secrets of the universe. He had perfected the art of disappearing while remaining physically present. I looked down at the laminated card in my hands. The rules were printed in a cheerful font, the kind you would see on a motivational poster. Rule 1. Call your mother at least 3 times per week, scheduled at her convenience. Rule 2. Attend all family events with a minimum of 48 hours notice. No exceptions for work. Rule 3. Contribute monthly to family expenses. Amount to be determined by family need. Rule 4. Do not correct your mother in public or private settings. Rule 5. Ask permission before making major life decisions, including job changes, relocations, or relationship milestones. Rule 6. Prioritize family obligations over work commitments at all times. There were 12 rules in total. 12 rules for how I needed to behave if I wanted the privilege of eating with my own family again. My mother stood at the head of the table, hands clasped together, looking pleased with herself. She had spent time on this. The lamination alone must have required a trip to the print shop. The copies she mentioned were apparently stacked somewhere, ready to be distributed like some kind of twisted party favor. Amanda finally found her voice. "This is a joke, right?" she asked, looking around the table. "Please tell me this is some kind of family inside joke." My mother's smile tightened. "It is not a joke, dear. Trevor has been distant lately. He forgets to call. He misses family events. We raised him better than that. Sometimes people need clear expectations to help them remember what matters." "He paid for this entire dinner," Amanda said, her voice rising slightly. "He drove 6 hours round trip to be here. He spent his day off cooking and coordinating everything. And we are very grateful," my mother said, her tone suggesting the exact opposite. "That is exactly why I wanted to give him this gift, to help him understand that family is not just about throwing money around. It is about consistent presence and respect." My Aunt Patricia, my father's sister, shifted uncomfortably in her chair. She opened her mouth as if to say something, then closed it again. I noticed her fingers tightening around her fork. Uncle Bernard, my mother's brother, nodded slowly as if the rules made perfect sense. My 2 cousins, both teenagers, stared at their phones, clearly wishing they were anywhere else. Jason finally spoke up. "I think it is fair, honestly. You do kind of disappear into your fancy Seattle life and forget about us." He reached for another dinner roll, acting as if he had just commented on the weather. I felt Amanda's hand find mine under the table, squeezing tight. I knew what she wanted me to do. She wanted me to stand up, to tell them all exactly what I thought of this humiliating power play, to walk out with my head held high. But I could not move. I sat there, staring at the laminated rules, thinking about all the years I had spent trying to earn my mother's approval, trying to be enough, trying to matter. My mother sat back down, satisfied with the silence. Now, who wants pie? The rest of Thanksgiving dinner passed in a fog. I smiled when expected. I nodded when spoken to. I cleared plates and wrapped leftovers, and accepted hugs from relatives who pretended nothing strange had happened. Amanda and I drove back to our hotel in silence. It was not until we were alone in the room that she finally exploded. "Trevor, that was insane. Your mother publicly humiliated you in front of your entire family. And nobody said anything. Nobody stood up for you." I sat on the edge of the bed, still holding the laminated rule card. "That is just how my family works." "No," Amanda said firmly. "That is not how families work. That is how cults work." I wanted to defend them. The instinct was so deeply ingrained that even now, even after everything, my first impulse was to make excuses. But as I sat there in that generic hotel room with its bland landscape paintings and scratchy comforter, memories started flooding back. Memories I had spent years trying to reframe as normal. I was the oldest. That came with expectations. While Jason got to be the baby, the one who could do no wrong, I was the responsible one, the one who had to set an example. When I was 16 and wanted to try out for the baseball team, my mother said no. I needed to work after school to help with family expenses. Jason joined the baseball team at 16. My mother said it was important for his development. I put myself through college, 3 jobs. Student loans I was still paying off. I studied computer science because I was good at it, and because I knew it would lead to a stable career. I graduated with honors. My mother came to the ceremony but spent most of it on her phone. Jason dropped out of community college after 1 semester. My mother threw him a party for trying his best. 2 years ago, I landed a job at a tech company in Seattle. 6-figure salary, benefits, stock options. Everything I had worked towards since I was a kid trying to figure out how to escape the suffocating dynamics of my family. I called my mother to tell her. She said, "That is nice, honey. Can you send some money? The water heater broke." I sent the money. I always sent the money. 6 months ago, I got promoted to senior software engineer. More responsibility, more pay, more respect from my colleagues. I was finally building the life I had always dreamed of. Amanda and I had started talking about getting engaged. We had looked at apartments together, planning for a future that felt bright and possible. I decided to host Thanksgiving. I wanted to show my family what I had accomplished. I wanted them to be proud. I wanted, just once, for my mother to look at me the way she looked at Jason when he managed to show up on time for a family dinner. Now, sitting in that hotel room, I realized how foolish that desire had been. "There is something else," Amanda said quietly. She was sitting at the small desk, her laptop open. Her face looked pale in the blue light from the screen. "Trevor, you need to see this." She turned the laptop toward me. It was my mother's social media page. I rarely looked at it. My mother had embraced social media late in life but had taken to it with enthusiasm. She posted constantly. Pictures of her garden, recipes she wanted to try, inspirational quotes about motherhood. But these posts were different. Amanda had scrolled back months. There were dozens of posts about me, about her struggles with an ungrateful son, about how she had sacrificed everything to raise her children, only to have the oldest one forget where he came from, about the pain of watching your child become distant and cold. The posts were carefully worded. She never said anything directly cruel. Instead, she painted herself as the long-suffering mother. Bewildered by her son's transformation, she talked about how success had changed me, how I used to be warm and caring, but now I was all about money and status, how she was trying to reach me, to bring me back to the values she had instilled. But I kept pulling away. Each post had dozens of comments. Friends and distant relatives offering sympathy. Strangers sharing their own stories of ungrateful children. People suggesting strategies for dealing with adult children who had lost their way. She had been building a narrative for months. The rule list was not a spontaneous idea. It was the culmination of a carefully constructed campaign to reframe my independence as disrespect, my success as abandonment, my healthy boundaries as cruelty. "She has been planning this," Amanda said. "The Thanksgiving dinner you paid for, the public gift giving, making copies for everyone. She orchestrated the whole thing to maximize your humiliation." I scrolled through the posts. my stomach churning. There were pictures of me from years ago, back when I lived at home, captioned with things like, "Back when Trevor knew what mattered, and before Seattle changed everything." There were vague posts about financial stress, subtly implying that I could help but chose not to, conveniently leaving out all the times I had sent money. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Hope you are thinking about what we discussed today. Family is everything, Trevor. Do not forget that." Another buzz, this time from Jason. "Nice job making Mom cry after everyone left. Real classy." I had not made her cry. I had barely spoken after receiving the rule list. But truth did not matter. The narrative was set. Amanda closed the laptop. "What are you going to do?" "I do not know," I said honestly. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about the rule list, about the social media posts, about the pattern of my entire life. I thought about how I had always been the one to apologize, to smooth things over, to sacrifice my own needs to keep the peace. I thought about how exhausted I was from always trying to be enough for people who would never see me as enough. When I finally fell asleep near dawn, I dreamed I was back at that Thanksgiving table. But this time, when my mother handed me the box, I did not open it. I stood up and walked away. In the dream, it felt like freedom. I did not know yet that freedom would come with a price far higher than I could imagine. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, a certified letter arrived at my apartment in Seattle. It was waiting in my mailbox when I got home from work, the kind of thick envelope that immediately signals bad news. I opened it standing right there in the lobby of my building, still wearing my work badge and carrying my laptop bag. The letterhead belonged to First National Bank, a regional institution I had never done business with. The letter began with formal language about delinquent payments and obligations. It took me 3 reads to understand what I was looking at. A second mortgage, $70,000, on my parents' home, with my name listed as co-signer. 3 months of missed payments. Foreclosure proceedings would begin in 30 days if the account was not brought current. My hands started shaking. I took the elevator up to my apartment, the letter clutched so tight the paper wrinkled. Amanda was making dinner. She took one look at my face and turned off the stove. "What happened?" I handed her the letter. While she read, I tried to think. I had never co-signed anything for my parents. I had never even been asked. The house had been paid off years ago, or so I thought. Why would they need a second mortgage? And why would my name be on it? "This does not make sense," Amanda said, echoing my thoughts. "When would you have signed this?" "I did not," I said. "I have never signed anything like this." The next morning, I called the bank as soon as they opened. I got transferred 3 times before reaching someone in the loan department. A woman named Margaret with a kind voice and no good news. "Yes, Mr. Holloway. We have you listed as co-signer on the account. The loan was originated 8 months ago, April 15th to be exact." "I did not sign anything in April," I said. "I was not even in the state in April. I was at a work conference in Austin." There was a pause. Typing sounds. "We have your signature on file, along with copies of your identification and social security card. The loan was processed through our branch in your parents' hometown. Can you send me copies of everything? I think there might be fraud involved here." Another pause, longer this time. "I can initiate a fraud investigation, Mr. Holloway, but I should inform you that if fraud is confirmed, we would need to pursue criminal charges against whoever forged your signature." Criminal charges. Against my mother. Because even before Margaret said anything else, I knew. I knew who had done this. The documents arrived via email within the hour. I opened them in my office. Door closed, hands trembling. There was my signature. Except it was not my signature. It was close. But the loops were wrong, the pressure different. Someone had practiced, but not quite enough. The identification was trickier. They had used photocopies of old documents from when I was 21, when I had briefly been on the title of my parents' house. I had helped them refinance back then, before I fully understood the implications. A few months later, They had removed me from the title. But apparently, my mother had kept the paperwork. My Social Security card photocopy was from the same era. I recognized the slight crease in the corner from when I had kept it in my wallet during college. She had forged my signature, used old documents, taken out $70,000 in my name. I called my parents' home number. My father answered. "Dad, I need to talk to Mom about the second mortgage." Silence. Then, "Hold on," shuffling sounds. Voices in the background. Finally, my mother picked up. "Trevor, honey, I was just thinking about you." "Mom, I got a letter from First National Bank about a $70,000 mortgage with my name on it." "Oh, that," she said, her voice light, unconcerned. "Yes, we needed some help with a few expenses. Family helps family, sweetheart. You know that. I did not sign anything." "Of course you did, honey. Do not you remember? We talked about it last spring. I was in Austin last spring. For 2 weeks. I was never near the bank." Her tone shifted, became defensive. "Well, maybe I am misremembering the exact timing. The point is, we needed help, and you are in a position to provide it. That is what family does. You forged my signature. Trevor, do not be dramatic. I handled some paperwork because you were busy. That is not forgery. That is a mother taking care of business." My head was pounding. What was the money for? Expenses. This and that. Jason's business needed some startup capital. We needed new furniture. Your father and I took a cruise we had been dreaming about for years. I had some medical procedures that insurance did not cover. Just life, Trevor. Just the normal costs of living. $70,000. For a food truck that lasted 3 months. For a cruise. For furniture. For cosmetic procedures that were not medical necessities. "The payments are 3 months overdue," I said. "Well, that is why I need you to help. Your salary is what? 6 figures now? You can afford to make the payments. We raised you, Trevor. We fed you and clothed you and put a roof over your head for 18 years. This is your chance to give back. By paying off a loan you took out fraudulently in my name. Do not use that word," she snapped. "I am your mother. I do not defraud you. I help us. There is a difference. If I do not pay this, what happens? Then we lose the house," she said simply, "and that will be on you. When people ask why your parents are homeless, I will tell them the truth. My successful son could have helped but chose not to. This is not helping, Mom. This is fraud. This is identity theft. Oh, stop being so dramatic. You sound like one of those lawyers on TV. We are family. Family takes care of each other. Or did they not teach you that in Seattle?" My father got back on the phone. "Trevor, son, just help your mother out. You know how she gets. Just make a few payments until we get back on our feet. Did you know she forged my signature?" Silence. Then, "Just help us, Trevor, please." He hung up. I sat in my office, the documents spread across my desk, and tried to breathe. $70,000. Plus the thousands I would need to repair my credit. Plus legal fees if I fought this. My savings would be devastated. The engagement ring I had been planning to buy Amanda would have to wait. The future we had been building would be delayed, maybe derailed entirely. Or I could report the fraud, watch my mother potentially face criminal charges, tear the family apart publicly, become the villain in the narrative she had been so carefully constructing. Amanda found me still sitting there 3 hours later. She read the situation in my face. She did it, did not she? I nodded. "What are you going to do?" "I do not know." That night, my mother sent me a text message, just one line. "Honor your father and mother, that your days may be long." Exodus 2012. I checked my credit score before bed. It had dropped 87 points. On Sunday morning, 10 days after discovering the fraudulent mortgage, I received a group text. The message came from my mother's phone, sent to what looked like 30 people. "Family emergency meeting. Your presence required. Today at 3 p.m. at Giuseppe's restaurant. This concerns all of us." I showed the text to Amanda. "Should I go?" Do you think it is actually an emergency? With my mother, who knows? But if I do not go, she will use that against me too. Giuseppe's was a mid-range Italian restaurant in my hometown. The kind of place with red checkered tablecloths and breadsticks in paper-lined baskets. When Amanda and I arrived at 3:05, apologizing for the Seattle traffic, I understood immediately that this was not what I had thought it would be. The back room of the restaurant was packed. Not just my immediate family, but aunts, uncles, cousins I had not seen in years, family friends, people from my parents' church, even Pastor Gregory, who had baptized me when I was 8 years old. Everyone sat in rows of chairs facing a small table where my mother stood with her laptop connected to a portable screen. "Trevor, Amanda, please sit," my mother said, gesturing to 2 empty chairs in the front row. "We have been waiting." My stomach dropped. This was not a family meeting. This was a performance. My mother waited until we were seated. She had dressed carefully. A modest blue dress, minimal makeup, her hair pulled back in a simple bun. She looked like someone's kind grandmother, not like someone orchestrating public humiliation. "Thank you all for coming," she began. "I know this is unusual, but I felt it was important to address a family crisis together, as a community. As you all know, our family is facing financial hardship. We may lose our home." Murmurs rippled through the room. Some people looked genuinely shocked. Others nodded as if confirming something they had already heard. "I want to show you all something," my mother continued. She clicked on her laptop. The screen behind her lit up. What followed was a presentation that must have taken her hours to create. It was titled A Mother's Plea, and it was designed to destroy me. The first slide showed photos of me as a child. School pictures, birthday parties, family vacations. I looked happy in every photo. Innocent. The caption read, "Before he changed." The second slide showed more recent photos, pulled from my social media. Me at a work event in a suit. Me and Amanda at a nice restaurant. Me standing in front of my apartment building in Seattle. The caption read, "After Seattle." My mother narrated as the slides progressed. "I raised 2 sons. I worked 2 jobs when they were growing up. Their father worked construction in all weather. We sacrificed everything to give our boys opportunities we never had." Slide 3. A timeline of my life. High school graduation. College acceptance. My first job. Each milestone noted with a date and a brief description. But the descriptions were loaded. High school graduation. Full scholarship offered, but worked jobs instead of focusing on community. College. Distant. Rarely came home. First job. Moved across the country without discussion. I felt Amanda tense beside me. Her hand found mine. "Trevor has done very well for himself," my mother continued. Her voice warm with what sounded like pride but felt like a knife. "We are so proud of his success. Look at this." The next slide showed a breakdown of my salary. She had the number right, which meant she had been snooping through documents or had gotten the information from the mortgage application. Below my salary, she had calculations. Yearly, take home after taxes. Approximately $95,000. Monthly expenses estimate, $4,000. Remaining monthly income, approximately $4,000 to $300. Someone in the audience whispered, "That is a lot of money." "Yes," my mother agreed. "It is a lot of money, and we are so happy for Trevor's success. But here is what breaks my heart." The next slide showed the mortgage situation. She had carefully worded it to remove any mention of forgery or fraud. It simply stated that the family home had a $70,000 second mortgage in default, that foreclosure was imminent, and that Trevor had the financial means to help, but was choosing not to. The slide after that showed examples of my lifestyle. The nice restaurant photo again. A screenshot of a positive review I had written for a concert Amanda and I attended. Ticket price visible, $80 each. A photo of my car. A decent sedan I had bought used but which looked expensive in the right light. "While we struggle," my mother said, her voice beginning to waver with practiced emotion. "While we face losing our home, my son is living a comfortable life. He has forgotten where he came from. Aunt Patricia, my father's sister, stood up. Linda, how exactly did this mortgage situation happen? How did the house go from paid off to in foreclosure? My mother's expression flickered, just for a moment. That is not relevant to today's discussion, Patricia. What matters is that we need help, and we are not getting it. I think it is very relevant. Patricia pressed. Because if I remember correctly, Trevor is quite responsible with money. He put himself through college, so I am wondering how his name ended up on a mortgage he apparently knows nothing about. Patricia, my father said, his voice low and warning. Not now. My mother pulled out a tissue, dabbing at her eyes. You see what I deal with? Even in a crisis, there are family members who want to create division instead of unity. She clicked to the next slide. This one showed a basket sitting on the table beside her laptop. An actual physical basket, like you would use for collecting donations at church. I do not like to ask for help, my mother said. It goes against everything I believe in. But we are desperate. If we do not pay the overdue mortgage payments, we will be homeless by Christmas. So I am asking anyone who can help, please consider a small donation. Every bit counts. And maybe, if we work together as a family, we can show Trevor what real community looks like. She passed the basket to my Uncle Bernard, who sat at the end of the front row. He pulled out his wallet and put in what looked like $20. The basket moved down the row. People awkwardly contributed 10s and 20s, some 5s. When it reached Amanda, she stared at it like it was a snake. This is insane, Amanda whispered to me. The basket continued around the room. Most people contributed something. A few passed it along without adding anything, looking uncomfortable. When it came back to my mother, she looked inside and smiled softly. Thank you all. This means so much. It is not about the amount. It is about showing that family matters. Pastor Gregory stood up. He was an older man, white hair and kind eyes, someone I had respected as a child. Linda, Robert, I think we all need to remember what Scripture tells us about family. The parable of the prodigal son teaches us about forgiveness and homecoming. Trevor, perhaps you have been away, figuratively speaking, but it is never too late to come home. To remember your responsibilities to those who raised you. Something in me snapped. I stood up. I did not sign that mortgage, I said clearly. My signature was forged. I have never authorized any loan on my parents' home. What you are all being told is not the complete truth. The room went silent. My mother's face transformed. Her eyes widened. Her mouth opened in shock, and tears appeared almost on command. Trevor, how can you say such a thing? How can you accuse your own mother? Because it is true. I have copies of the documents. I have a fraud investigation open with the bank. My signature on those papers is not my signature. You are misremembering, my mother said quickly. We discussed this. You agreed to help us. I was in Austin when that loan was processed. I have receipts, boarding passes, hotel records. I was never in the state, let alone at the bank. My mother turned to the crowd, her expression one of profound hurt. Do you see what I mean? He would rather call his mother a criminal than admit he has turned his back on his family. Jason, who had been sitting quietly in the back, stood up. You are such a piece of work, Trevor. Mom asks for help and you call the cops on her. I did not call anyone, I said. I filed a dispute with the bank because someone used my identity without permission. That is fraud. That is a crime. And instead of acknowledging that, I am being publicly humiliated and manipulated into paying for something I did not authorize. Uncle Bernard shook his head. This is what happens when young people get a little money. They forget where they came from. They forget who helped them get there. I put myself through college, I said, my voice rising. I worked 3 jobs. I took out loans I am still paying off. I sent money home whenever asked. I have tried to be a good son. But being a good son does not mean letting myself be defrauded and then blamed for it. My mother pulled out the forged documents, the ones she had been sent by the bank during the investigation. She held them up like evidence at a trial. This is your signature, Trevor. Right here. Clear as day. You are either lying or you have forgotten, and I do not know which is worse. Half the room looked convinced. The other half looked uncertain, glancing between me and my mother, trying to figure out who to believe. Amanda stood up beside me. "We are leaving." "Yes. Run away," my mother said. "That is what he does best. Runs away when things get difficult." I walked to the table where the donation basket sat. I picked it up and carried it around the room, returning money to people. "I am sorry you were brought here under false pretenses. I am sorry my family situation is being used to manipulate you. Please take back your money." Most people took it back, looking embarrassed. A few refused, insisting the money was for my parents. I set the basket down and walked toward the exit. Amanda followed. So did Aunt Patricia. In the parking lot, Patricia caught up to us. "Trevor, wait." I stopped, exhausted and humiliated beyond words. "I believe you," Patricia said. "And I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you years ago." Patricia suggested we go to her house. She lived 20 minutes away, in a small ranch home with a tidy garden and a porch swing. Amanda and I sat in her living room while she made tea neither of us wanted but accepted anyway because it gave us all something to do with our hands. 15 years ago, Patricia began, setting her teacup down with careful precision. "Your mother did the same thing to me." I stared at her. "What?" "Not exactly the same, but close enough. She took out a loan using my information. $30,000. I found out when I got a letter from a collection agency. When I confronted her, she said I had agreed to co-sign but had forgotten. She insisted I was misremembering. She cried. She made me feel like I was losing my mind." "What did you do?" Amanda asked. "I went to your father first. Showed him the documents. Showed him proof I had never been to the bank, never signed anything. He begged me not to pursue it. Said it would destroy the family. He promised they would pay it back. Did they?" Patricia laughed, a bitter sound. "Of course not. I ended up paying it off myself over 5 years to save my credit. And the family? They chose her side. Started treating me like I was the problem. Like I was vindictive for even bringing it up. I got uninvited from holidays. My phone calls went unreturned. Your mother told everyone I was mentally unstable, that I was making up stories about her because I was jealous." "Why did not you press charges?" I asked. "For the same reason you are hesitating now. Because they are family. Because I was raised to believe that family matters more than truth, more than justice, more than protecting yourself. It took me years to realize how wrong that is." She stood up and left the room. When she came back, she was carrying a file folder, the kind that gets worn and soft from being handled too many times. "I kept everything," she said, opening the folder on the coffee table. "Every document, every text message, every piece of evidence. I told myself it was just in case, but really, I think I knew. I knew someday your mother would do this to someone else. I knew someday someone would need proof that I was telling the truth." The documents were meticulously organized. Loan papers with a forged signature that looked almost like Patricia's, but not quite. Bank statements showing transactions Patricia never made. Letters from collection agencies. Even printouts of social media posts where my mother had subtly suggested Patricia was unstable and difficult. The similarity to my situation was chilling. "Trevor," Patricia said gently, "your mother has a pattern. This is not about desperate circumstances or poor judgment. This is about someone who believes she is entitled to whatever she can take and who has gotten very good at manipulating people into letting her." Amanda was reading through the documents, her expression growing darker. "Trevor, you need to talk to a lawyer. Today." I called my friend Marcus, who worked as a corporate attorney in Seattle. He gave me the name of someone in my hometown who specialized in fraud and identity theft. By 6 p.m. that evening, I was sitting in the office of Sarah Chen, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who listened to my story without interruption. "First thing tomorrow," she said when I finished. "We file a police report. Then we formalize the dispute with the bank. We collect every piece of evidence, your travel records from April, your transaction history showing you were not in the state, character witnesses who can attest to your relationship with your parents. What about criminal charges against my mother?" Sarah's expression was kind but firm. That decision is up to the police and the prosecutor's office, not you. Once you file a fraud report, it is out of your hands. The bank has already opened an investigation. If they find clear evidence of forgery, which it sounds like they will, they are required to report it. She could go to jail. She could. Or she could get probation, community service, a fine. It depends on a lot of factors. But Trevor, you need to understand something. If you do not fight this, you are legally responsible for that debt. $70,000 plus interest and penalties. It will destroy your credit for years. It could affect your job, your ability to rent or buy property, everything. I knew she was right, but knowing it and accepting it were different things. Over the next 2 weeks, I built my case. I collected everything: boarding passes from my Austin trip, hotel receipts, credit card statements showing transactions in Texas while the mortgage was supposedly being signed in my hometown, emails from work showing I was at a conference during the critical dates. The bank's fraud investigation unit contacted me. They had compared signatures. They had interviewed the bank employee who processed the loan. That employee remembered processing the paperwork but could not specifically remember meeting me. They had security camera footage from the bank, but it was grainy and inconclusive. What was conclusive was the signature analysis. A handwriting expert confirmed what I already knew. The signature on the mortgage documents was not mine. I also discovered something else. While digging through my credit report, trying to assess the damage, I found applications for credit cards in my name, 3 of them. All denied because of Jason's poor credit history, which was somehow linked to my file in the system. When I investigated further, I realized my mother had tried to open credit cards in Jason's name too, but his credit was already too poor to qualify. I was the target because I was the only one with good credit, the only one with assets worth stealing. Patricia encouraged me to go to the police. Amanda was less pushy but made it clear she thought it was the right move. I spent 3 sleepless nights wrestling with the decision. On the 4th night, my mother texted me. Not a guilt trip this time, not Bible verses or accusations. Just, "I love you, Trevor. Please help us. We are your family." I looked at that text for a long time. I thought about the little boy I used to be. The one who believed his mother's love was something he had to earn. The one who worked 3 jobs to put himself through college because asking for help meant being a burden. The one who kept sending money home even when it meant delaying his own dreams. I thought about the man I was now. The one with a good job and a woman he loved and a future that felt bright and possible. The one who had worked so hard to build something stable and safe. And I thought about the man I wanted to become. The one who could set boundaries without drowning in guilt. The one who could protect himself without feeling like a villain. I blocked my mother's number. Not permanently, I told myself. Just temporarily. Just until I could think clearly. The next morning, I filed a police report for identity theft and fraud. The officer who took my report was a middle-aged woman named Detective Ramirez. She listened to everything, reviewed all my evidence, and then looked at me with something that might have been sympathy. "This is your mother," she said. Not a question. "Yes, and you understand that filing this report means we have to investigate. We have to pursue it. I understand." She nodded slowly. "Okay then, let's get started." I walked out of that police station feeling like I had just jumped off a cliff. No going back now. No pretending this was something that could be smoothed over or forgotten. I had chosen myself over the family mythology. Now I would find out what that choice would cost me. 3 weeks after filing the police report, I received an update from Detective Ramirez. The investigation had moved quickly. The bank had fully cooperated, providing all documents and records. The handwriting analysis was definitive. The security footage, while grainy, showed a woman matching my mother's description at the bank on the day the loan was processed. But no man matching my description. "We have enough for charges," Detective Ramirez told me over the phone. "The prosecutor is reviewing the case now. They will likely file charges within the next few days." My stomach dropped. What kind of charges? Identity theft, forgery, fraud. Probably multiple counts. With the amount of money involved, these are felonies. "Your mother could face significant prison time." "How much time?" 2 to 5 years, potentially. Maybe more if she has any prior offenses. I sat down hard on my couch. Amanda was at work. I was alone in our apartment, staring at the skyline of Seattle through our window, thinking about my mother in prison. Then my phone buzzed with an alert, a notification from the bank. I opened it, expecting another piece of the investigation. But instead, it was something different. A foreclosure notice. Official, legal, final. The house was being foreclosed due to non-payment of both the first and second mortgages. My mother had not just failed to pay the fraudulent second mortgage. She had stopped paying the original mortgage too. I called the bank immediately. A different representative this time. Someone from the foreclosure department. Mr. Holloway, I see your fraud case is still being processed. Unfortunately, the foreclosure is separate from that investigation. The first mortgage is not in your name, so that is not related to the fraud. That is your parents' debt. They are 4 months behind. 4 months? I thought they had paid off the house years ago. They took out a new first mortgage 2 years ago. $130,000. They have been making payments, but they stopped 4 months ago. The property will go to public auction in 60 days. 60 days. I did the math in my head. That would put the auction in late December, right around my mother's birthday. An idea began forming, terrible and perfect at the same time. I called Sarah Chen, my attorney. What if I wanted to buy the house at the foreclosure auction? There was a pause. You want to buy your parents' house out from under them. Is it legal? Perfectly legal. Foreclosure auctions are public. Anyone can bid. If you have the financing in place, you could absolutely purchase the property. And then what happens? Then you own it. Your parents would become tenants without a lease, which means you could legally evict them. You would need to follow proper eviction procedures, give them notice, go through the courts if necessary. But yes, you would have every legal right to remove them from the property. How much would I need? It depends on the bidding. But typically properties sell for the amount owed on them, sometimes less. You would need to cover the first mortgage debt of $130,000 plus any fees and back payments. Call it $140,000 to $150,000 total. Could you get that kind of financing? I thought about my savings. $100,000 saved over 6 years of hard work and careful budgeting. I thought about the engagement ring I had planned to buy, the house I had dreamed of purchasing with Amanda, the future I had been building. Then I thought about the $70,000 in fraudulent debt that would be wiped out if I owned the house. I thought about my mother's smug certainty that I would eventually cave, that family obligation would force me to save her. I could get it, I said. Trevor, I have to ask. Are you sure about this? This is a nuclear option. This will destroy whatever relationship you have left with your family. What relationship? I asked. The one where my mother commits fraud against me and then makes me the villain for objecting. That relationship is already destroyed. She just has not accepted it yet. Over the next month, I put together the financing. I got pre-approved for a loan to purchase the property at auction. I researched foreclosure procedures in my home state. I learned about eviction laws and tenant rights. I prepared for every possible scenario. I did not tell anyone except Amanda and Patricia. Amanda was conflicted. I support you, she said one night as we lay in bed. I understand why you are doing this. But Trevor, are you ready for the fallout? This will be brutal. It is already brutal, I said. The difference is, this way I am not the one being destroyed. Patricia was more enthusiastic. Good, she said when I told her my plan. It is about time someone held her accountable. For 15 years, I have watched your mother manipulate and steal and play the victim while everyone enables her. Maybe this will finally wake people up. Meanwhile, my mother's social media campaign continued. She posted about the foreclosure, carefully wording it to suggest it was somehow my fault. She posted about how hard the holidays would be, knowing her family might be homeless by Christmas. She posted prayers and Bible verses about forgiveness and family. Her followers ate it up. The comments were full of support for her and condemnation of me. I was called selfish, heartless, cruel. Someone suggested my success had made me forget my roots. Someone else said rich people always abandon their families. I did not respond. I did not engage. I just watched and documented everything. Jason sent me threatening texts. He called me names I will not repeat. He told me I was dead to the family. He said when Mom and Dad were homeless, their blood would be on my hands. I blocked Jason too. My father sent just one text. Please, son, just help us. I did not block my father, but I did not respond either. The auction date was set for December 28th, my mother's birthday. The poetry of it was not lost on me. I had paid for Thanksgiving dinner and received a list of humiliating rules. Now I would give her a birthday present she would never forget. I spent Christmas in Seattle with Amanda. We made dinner together, watched movies, tried to pretend I was not counting down the days until the auction. Amanda gave me a gift. A journal with a leather cover, beautiful and expensive, for writing down everything you are learning, she said, about boundaries and self-respect and what family really means. I held that journal and felt something crack open in my chest. Not breaking, expanding, like a space that had been crushed for years was finally being allowed to breathe. On December 27th, Amanda and I drove to my hometown. We got a hotel room. I reviewed my financing documents one more time. I called Sarah to confirm everything was in order. Ready for tomorrow, she asked, ready as I will ever be. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about my mother opening her presents tomorrow, expecting a birthday celebration. I kept thinking about her face when she found out what I had done. Part of me felt guilty. That part sounded like my mother's voice, telling me I was cruel and heartless. But a larger part of me, a part that was growing stronger every day, knew this was right, knew that protecting myself was not cruelty, knew that consequences were not punishment. I thought about that list of rules, about being told I needed permission to make major life decisions, about being publicly humiliated for the crime of setting boundaries. Tomorrow, I would make the biggest decision of my life, and I would not ask anyone's permission. The county courthouse was a stern gray building downtown, the kind of place that makes you feel small just by existing in it. I arrived at 9:30 in the morning for the 10 o'clock auction. Amanda came with me. So did Patricia. Sarah met us in the lobby. Big day, Sarah said, giving my shoulder a squeeze. Remember, stay calm, do not show emotion, bid strategically. The auction room was smaller than I expected. Folding chairs arranged in rows. A podium at the front where a county official would conduct the sale. There were maybe a dozen other people there. I recognized two as real estate investors I had researched online. One was a representative from a house flipping company. The others looked like curious onlookers or people with their own properties on the auction block. My parents were not there. Neither was Jason. Part of me had expected them to show up, to make one last scene. But they had no idea the auction was even happening today. The notice had been published in the legal section of the local newspaper. But my mother did not read legal notices. The county official, a thin man in his 60s with reading glasses on a chain, called the room to order at precisely 10 o'clock. We have 4 properties on the docket today. We will begin with 47 Maple Street. That was not my parents' address. I sat through that auction, watching a young couple bid against an investor. The couple won at $108,000. They looked relieved and terrified at the same time. Next property, 183 Elmwood Drive, my parents' address, my childhood home, the place where I had learned to disappear into myself to avoid conflict, the place where I had never quite been enough. The official read the details. 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, 1,600 square feet, quarter-acre lot, amount owed, $132,417 on the first mortgage, plus fees and back payments, bringing the total to $139,683. Opening bid, $139,683. I raised my hand. The official acknowledged me. Bidder number 7. Do I have $140,000? One of the investors raised his hand. $140,000. Do I have $145,000? I raised my hand again. This went on for 4 more rounds. The investor dropped out at $160,000. The house flipping company representative bid $165,000. I countered with $170,000. The representative studied me for a moment, then shook his head. Going once at $170,000, the official said. Going twice. Sold to bidder number 7 for $170,000. Just like that, I owned my childhood home. The paperwork took 2 hours. Signatures and wire transfers and title documents. Sarah walked me through every step. By 12:30, I had the keys in my pocket and the deed in my hand. What now? Amanda asked as we walked out of the courthouse into the cold December afternoon. Now I go to the house. Do you want us to come with you? I thought about it. No. I need to do this part alone. I drove to 183 Elmwood Drive. The house looked exactly as it always had. White siding, blue shutters, a small front porch with 2 rocking chairs. The lawn needed mowing. The gutters needed cleaning, but it was still standing, still solid, still home to the people who had raised me and betrayed me. I let myself in with my new keys. The house was quiet, empty. I had timed this carefully. My parents and Jason were out, probably at lunch somewhere, maybe celebrating my mother's birthday early because they thought the evening would be taken up with foreclosure grief. I walked through the rooms, seeing them with new eyes. The living room where I had opened that Thanksgiving gift. The kitchen where my mother had always controlled what happened. Who got what? Who mattered? My old bedroom, now a storage room filled with boxes of things no one wanted but could not throw away. I called a locksmith, had all the locks changed within an hour. Then I called the sheriff's department and arranged for a deputy to meet me at the house at 6 p.m. Then I waited. They arrived at 5:45, all 3 of them in my father's truck. They were laughing about something. My mother was carrying a small cake, probably from the grocery store bakery. She was wearing a birthday crown made of paper, the kind you get at chain restaurants. They tried their keys. The keys did not work. Confusion on their faces. My father tried his key again. Still nothing. That is when I opened the door. The look on my mother's face went from confusion to shock to rage so fast it was almost impressive. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. "How did you get in?" "I live here," I said calmly. "Or rather, I own here. The house was foreclosed on this morning. I bought it at auction." My mother's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Jason pushed past her. "You did what?" "The house was in foreclosure because you stopped making payments. It went to public auction. I purchased it. I now own this property, and you are trespassing." A sheriff's deputy pulled up at that moment, right on time. Deputy Morris, a tall black man with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. He had been briefed on the situation. "Folks," he said, approaching the porch, "I understand this is a difficult situation, but Mr. Holloway here is the legal owner of this property as of noon today. You are going to need to vacate. He cannot do this," my mother said, her voice rising. "He cannot just steal our house." "It was not stealing, ma'am," Deputy Morris said. "It was a legal foreclosure auction. Your son purchased the property through proper legal channels." My father finally found his voice. "Trevor, what are you doing? How could you do this to us?" I looked at him, this man who had stayed silent through everything, who had let my mother manipulate and steal and abuse, who had chosen comfort over courage every single time. "You let her forge my signature," I said. "You let her take out $70,000 in my name. You said nothing when she publicly humiliated me. You have been a silent partner in all of this, Dad. Do not act surprised now." My mother was crying now. Real tears, not the performed ones from Giuseppe's. "It is my birthday," she sobbed. "How could you do this on my birthday?" I pulled the eviction notice from my pocket, the one Sarah had prepared. "You gave me a list of rules at Thanksgiving. Rules I had to follow if I wanted to eat with the family again. Remember that." She said nothing. "Well, here is my gift to you. An eviction notice. You have 30 days to vacate the property. That is Virginia law. I have to give you 30 days. After that, if you are not out, I will file for formal eviction through the courts." I handed her the notice. She stared at it like it was written in a foreign language. Jason stepped forward. Deputy Morris moved between us. "I could press charges," I said. looking at my mother. For the fraud, for the forgery, for identity theft. You could go to jail for 2 to 5 years, maybe more, but I am not going to do that. You get to keep your freedom. You just do not get to keep a house you tried to steal from me. Tried to steal. My mother's voice was shrill now. This is our home. We raised you here. You cannot just take it. You took $70,000 from me without permission. You destroyed my credit. You publicly humiliated me and manipulated our entire family against me. And you did all of this after I paid for Thanksgiving dinner, after I tried to show you love and gratitude. So no, Mom, I did not take anything. I protected myself. There is a difference. My father's face was red, angry in a way I had never seen. You have humiliated us. Humiliated your mother on her birthday. What kind of son does that? The kind who was raised by parents who would rather enable each other than protect their child, I said. The kind who finally learned that family should not cost you your dignity and your future. I turned to Deputy Morris. They have the eviction notice. 30 days starts today. Noted, he said. I looked at my family one more time. My mother was still sobbing, the paper birthday crown askew on her head. Jason was vibrating with rage, held back only by the deputy's presence. My father looked like he had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. I will have your belongings inventoried, I said. Everything will be here waiting for you. You can arrange to move it out any time in the next 30 days. Just coordinate with my attorney. I handed my mother Sarah's business card. Then I walked back to my car and drove away. My hands were shaking so hard I had to pull over 2 blocks later. Amanda called right then. How did it go? I did it, I said. It is done. Come back to the hotel. Patricia is here. We ordered pizza. I will be there in 5 minutes. I sat in my car, breathing hard, feeling like I had just run a marathon. My phone started buzzing. Texts from relatives. Jason had already started spreading the word, but I did not care anymore. For the first time in my life, I had chosen myself, and it felt like breathing after years of suffocating. The next 30 days were a storm of social media posts, family drama, and messages I deleted without reading. My mother's narrative painted me as a monster who had stolen the family home out of spite. Jason backed her up with increasingly unhinged rants. A few relatives believed the story. Most others, once they heard the full truth from Patricia or from me, went quiet. My mother tried everything. She called me from different numbers, leaving voicemails that alternated between threats and tearful pleas. She showed up at my Seattle apartment once, but the building had security and she could not get past the lobby. She hired a lawyer who informed her that everything I had done was completely legal and there was no case. They moved out on day 29, just before the deadline. I had the property professionally cleaned and inspected. Years of deferred maintenance became obvious once the house was empty. Leaking pipes, damaged flooring, a roof that needed replacing. They had let the place deteriorate while spending money on cruises and cosmetic procedures. I spent February and March renovating. New paint, new floors, fixed plumbing, a new roof. Amanda came down on weekends to help me pick out fixtures and colors. It was hard work, but satisfying. I was taking something broken and making it whole again. The metaphor was not lost on me. In April, with the renovations complete, I called Patricia. How would you feel about renting a house? I asked. What house? 183 Elmwood Drive. Below market rate. Month-to-month lease if you want flexibility, or year lease if you want stability. Your choice. There was silence on the other end. Then Patricia started crying. Trevor, I cannot afford that. I know what you can afford. That is what the rent will be. I am not doing this to make money, Patricia. I am doing this because you were the only person who told me the truth, who believed me, who had the courage to stand up to her when no one else would. I do not know what to say. Say yes. Yes. Absolutely yes. Patricia moved in the first week of May. She brought her furniture, her books, her entire life. She planted a garden in the backyard, vegetables and flowers, things that would grow and bloom. She invited Amanda and me over for dinner once she was settled. We sat on the back porch as the sun set, drinking iced tea and watching Patricia's garden catch the last golden light of the day. It felt peaceful in a way that house had never felt when I was growing up. "Have you heard from them?" Patricia asked. "My father sent an email 2 weeks ago. It was not an apology, exactly. More of an acknowledgement that they had made mistakes. He said my mother was seeing a therapist. That is something. I guess. It is more than I expected." "What about Jason?" "Nothing. I do not expect to hear from him. He has made his choice." Amanda squeezed my hand. "How do you feel about all of it now?" I thought about the question. Really thought about it. "I feel free," I said finally. "I spent my whole life trying to earn their approval. Trying to be enough. Trying to fix things that were not my responsibility to fix. And it was exhausting. It was killing me slowly, piece by piece." "You broke the cycle," Patricia said. "Not just for you, but for anyone else she might have targeted. That takes courage." 3 months later, in July, Amanda and I were back in Seattle preparing dinner in our apartment when my phone rang. Unknown number, but local to my hometown area code. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. "Trevor," it was my mother's voice. Quieter than I had ever heard it. "Please do not hang up." I put the phone on speaker so Amanda could hear. "I am listening. I just wanted to say, I have been working with a therapist, Dr. Martinez. She has been helping me understand some things, about control and manipulation and fear." I said nothing. "I am not calling to make excuses. What I did was wrong. The mortgage, the forgery, all of it, I stole from you. I tried to make you responsible for fixing my mistakes. I manipulated you and humiliated you. There is no excuse for any of that." "No," I agreed. "There is not. I do not expect you to forgive me. I do not deserve forgiveness. But I wanted you to know that I am working on it. On being better. On understanding why I did what I did. Dr. Martinez says I have patterns that go back to my own childhood. Ways I learned to survive that turned into ways of hurting people I love. That explains it," I said. "But it does not erase it. I know. I am not asking for that. I am just asking for you to know that I am trying, and that I am sorry. Really, truly sorry." I looked at Amanda. She gave me a small nod, leaving the choice to me. "Thank you for saying that," I said. "I appreciate the apology. I hope the therapy helps. Can I ask you something?" "You can ask. Do you think someday, maybe years from now, we could have a relationship again? Not like before. Something different. Something healthier." I thought about it. Maybe. I do not know. It would take time, a lot of time, and it would have to be different. I have boundaries now, Mom, real ones, and I will not compromise them for anyone. I understand. We hung up shortly after. I sat there holding the phone, feeling strange. Not healed, exactly. Not forgiven, exactly. But something had shifted. Some small window had opened. That was big. Amanda said, "Yeah. How do you feel?" Cautiously hopeful, but mostly still angry, mostly still hurt. "That is okay. You get to feel all of those things." In September, Amanda and I got engaged. I proposed on a weekend trip to the San Juan Islands, on a beach at sunset, with a ring I had been able to afford because I had not paid off someone else's fraudulent debt. She said yes before I even finished the question. We had a small engagement party in Seattle. I invited Patricia, who drove up and stayed the weekend. I did not invite my parents or Jason. I sent them a brief email with a photo of Amanda and me, letting them know we were engaged. My father sent congratulations. My mother sent a short note saying she was happy for us. Jason did not respond. Patricia gave a toast at the party. She talked about resilience and courage and the family we choose versus the family we are born into. She talked about how proud she was of me. I cried a little, which I had not expected. In November, almost a year after the Thanksgiving that changed everything, Amanda and I went back to Patricia's house for the holiday. She cooked, we helped, and we ate dinner at the table where I had once been given a list of rules. But now it was different. Now it was full of laughter and warmth and actual love, not the conditional kind I had grown up with. "What are you grateful for?" Patricia asked. The traditional question. For people who tell the truth, I said. For second chances. For the courage to protect myself. For learning that love should not hurt. Amanda added. For finding your family where you find it. Patricia raised her glass. To family. The real kind. We clinked glasses and I thought about my mother's birthday. About handing her that eviction notice. About the look on her face. I thought about how everyone had expected me to back down, to pay up, to fold under the pressure of family obligation. I thought about the boy I used to be, desperate for approval, willing to sacrifice anything to belong. And I thought about the man I had become, the one who learned that belonging is worthless if you have to betray yourself to achieve it. 2 weeks before Christmas, I received a card in the mail. My parents' return address. Inside was a brief note from my father. Your mother and I are living in a small apartment now. Jason finally got a job. We are making it work. It has been hard. But maybe hard is what we needed. Your mother is still in therapy. So am I, actually. We are learning a lot about ourselves. Not asking for anything. Just wanted you to know we are still here. Still working on it. If you ever want to talk, we are ready to listen. No expectations. Love, Dad. I showed the card to Amanda. What do you think? She asked. I think they are exactly where they need to be. Facing consequences, learning lessons, growing up, finally. Are you going to respond? Eventually. Maybe, when I am ready. And when will that be? I do not know, but I do know that I am not responsible for their healing. I am not responsible for fixing them or forgiving them on any timeline but my own, and that is okay. On Christmas Eve, Amanda and I sat in our Seattle apartment, decorated tree in the corner, snow falling outside the window. We exchanged gifts. She gave me a book about setting healthy boundaries. I gave her a necklace with both of our birthstones. I have been thinking, I said, about everything that happened, about the lessons I learned. And I learned that family should not require you to set yourself on fire to keep them warm. I learned that consequences are not cruelty. I learned that you can love people and still protect yourself from them. I learned that forgiveness does not mean allowing abuse to continue. I learned that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let people face the natural results of their choices. Amanda kissed me. You learned a lot. I had good teachers. You, Patricia, even my mother, in a backwards way. What do you think you will teach our kids someday? That they matter. That their boundaries are valid. That family is about respect and love, not manipulation and obligation. That they never have to earn the right to be treated with dignity. That sounds perfect. As the year ended and a new one began, I realized something. The story I had been living was not the one I thought I was in. I thought I was in a story about a bad son who needed to be better, but actually, I was in a story about a good son who needed to learn that good was enough, that he was enough, that protecting himself was not betrayal. I thought about that Thanksgiving dinner, the $2,000 I spent trying to prove my worth, the list of rules that said my worth was conditional. The moment I decided, quietly and without fanfare, that I was done performing for an audience that would never applaud. If you are reading this, or listening to this, and you see yourself in my story, I want you to know something. You are not responsible for people who refuse to take responsibility for themselves. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. You can love your family and still choose yourself. And choosing yourself is not selfish. It is survival. The house at 183 Elmwood Drive is no longer the place where I learned to disappear. It is Patricia's home now, full of life and laughter and vegetables growing in the garden. It is proof that places can be redeemed, that broken things can be made whole, that endings can actually be beginnings. I am getting married next summer. Patricia will be there. My parents might be invited. I have not decided yet. Jason probably will not come even if asked. And that is okay. I am building a new family now, one based on choice and respect and actual love. The last time I drove past 183 Elmwood Drive, Patricia was on the front porch, watering her plants. She waved. I waved back. and I realized that the house looked better than it ever had when my parents lived there. It had been given new life by someone who appreciated it. Maybe that is true for all of us. Maybe we all deserve to be appreciated, not manipulated. Maybe we all deserve to be in places where we can grow. I am growing now. So is Amanda. So is Patricia. Even my parents, in their own way, in their small apartment, facing the consequences of their choices. And me? I am finally free. So let me ask you something, because I think this matters. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between family obligation and self-protection? Where you had to decide if loyalty meant sacrificing yourself? If you have, I want you to know you are not alone. And if you chose yourself, you were right to do so. Leave a comment and tell me your story. I read them all. And if this story meant something to you, hit that like button, subscribe for more real stories about real life, and share this with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes we all need permission to protect ourselves. Consider this that permission. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. And remember, family should be a source of strength, not a weight that drags you down. You deserve better than rules and manipulation. You deserve actual love. Take care of yourselves out there. You matter more than you know.